Hello guys and welcome to this one. So for this one we're going to be looking at offline samples, um, brute force. It's kind of brute force because obviously when we talk about brute force we talk about going through the entire you know sample before getting our answer. So yeah, that's brute force. But to and that's what we're going to be looking at. So basically offline sample brute force, basically what we're doing, what the question entails, is basically sampling offline that data, right? And what we're trying to do is basically see how we get a random number or a random subset from a group of subsets, given a group of subsets, given a group of given a set basically, or be an array, not necessarily a set, but basically an array with specific amount or subset, or basically the length of the subset we want to see. So basically we are trying to do probability and pick fairly the the best subset of that number, of that sample size we are passing in, right? So that's the that's the entire idea, right? And so let's get started. Let's see how we work through that. So the offline sample brute force, so we take in the array as well as the sample size that we are trying to go for, and then we open up a result. Now what do we do here? Funny how this is a recursive. Yeah, that's an inside joke. But yeah, so what do we do here? What we do here is that we write another function, build array, that takes in the start index and the current index. So basically the start index will be 0 and the current index will be empty, because what we're trying to do is that we're trying to find small indexes that um, that are of the size of our sample that we're passing in, right? Sample size, right? So I think I'm not the greatest in naming variables, but bear with me. So we go for our base case, right? Because we are going through a recursive phase. So we go for our base case, and what would be our base case? Our base case, off the top of our head, what should it be? It would be the when the current array, that's the array we are trying to build, attains the size of our sample size, right? So we say if the current length of the array is equal to our sample size, then we should append that result, or not necessarily the result or the current array, but a copy of it, so that we can continue our recursion process and then we return. Now the recursive case, so what do we do here? We say the current index. So basically we are looping through the entire range from start index to the length of the array, and for every one we append the array in the current index, and so forth, so on and so forth, and then we call the build array again, the recursive step, and adding current plus 1, right? And then here the reason why we are doing a copy, our backtracking process, because you're going to come here and pop and then obviously um, go through that. So if you're not too conversant with recursion and how it works, and if this is a bit of a bit confusing, then I will advise you to stick around, because I will be doing a deep dive into recursion subsequently on this series. Because I myself didn't understand recursion, and then I went into a deep dive into recursion to understand how recursion works, and the base case, recursive case, talking about mhm, backtracking, and manipulations around uh, that are around recursion and how it helps, right? So yeah, I'll say that. And then we see here that we call the build array with the start index of 0, as well as the what's it called, an empty array, right? Right, yes, the current array. So yeah, the one we're trying to build. So we call that, and then after that has happened, has returned results, because obviously results will be appended continually to have an until we fill this results list up. Then we go ahead to what, return the choice dot blah 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 blah. So basically, what we do is we do a random pick. So from all the subsets of the sample size that has been returned inside results, right? What do? We then do a random choice, and we pick something random. And basically, with that, we have returned our sample, our this thing, our offline function. Basically, we get what we are looking for. So you see it here now in action, where we have this sample size, but we want a sample size of 3. So if I do this, you see that it gives me a different distance, the random size, the random this one has changed. And then if I run 4, my gosh, if I add 4 here and then I run it again, you see. So basically that's what what it's all about. Thank you for joining on. See you on the next one. Bye.